Am I audible? Hello?
Yes, audible.
Okay.
We are live now.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. On behalf of Torrent, I, Dolly Lakpati, would like to welcome you all. Shellkel, in association with ICOG and DGF, brings to you an interesting webinar on CTG Traces to Cases. To throw light on this interesting topic, we have esteemed KOL with us. Hereby, I would like to welcome our panelist guest. Guest of honor, we have Dr. Mandakini Meg, Chairperson, ICOG, Dr. Sharda Jain, Secretary, Gynae, Delhi Forum. Moderators for the webinar, we have Dr. Sujata Agarwal and Dr. Chanchal. Chairperson for the webinar are Dr. Archana Verma, Dr. Tarini Taneja, and we have esteemed panelists with us, Dr. Meenakshi Ahuja, Dr. Achla Batra, Dr. Kishore Rajurkar, Dr. Surekha Tayade, Dr. Harsha Kular, and Dr. Dipti Nag. Welcome, doctors. Over to you, Dr. Sujata Agarwal, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you, Dolly, for kind introduction. Dear
Sujata,
yeah,
Dr. Sujata, I want to introduce moderator.
Ma'am, just wait for 2 minutes, ma'am.
Okay.
So, dear friends, I extend a warm welcome to all of you who are attending this webinar on CTG, Cases to Traces. The purpose of this webinar is to update ourselves with CTG in a case-based scenario. We will be discussing 15 cases and we'll take opinion of our expert about the interpretation of CTG and line of management. It is my proud privilege to welcome Dr. Mandakini Meg, Chairperson ICOG, as guest of honor. She is a legend in her field, excellent clinician, and a passionate teacher. She has held numerous important positions in various national and international organizations. She is recipient of Mahila Gaurav Puraskar, Shelja Pandit Puraskar, and for her work in women empowerment, fight against domestic violence, contraception, and family welfare. May I request you, Dr. Mandakini ji, to kindly enlighten us with few words. Dr. Mandakini.
At the outset, Sujata, thank you very much for that wonderful introduction. I bring greetings from ICOG, Indian College of Obstetricians and Gynecology. And ICOG is very happy to be associated with this very, very important program. Before that, I want to pay my best wishes and respect to the seniors. Dr. Sharda, she is here, I don't know, but my colleagues, Dr. Tarini, Archana Verma, Sujata, thank you very much. So Taide, then Dr. Meenakshi, and Dr. Vandana Kullar, and everybody here. A great this thing scientific program is ahead. So I bring greetings from ICOG. ICOG is Indian College of Obstetrician and Gynecology, and I am so happy to say that we are conducting many fetal medicine program for the post PG student. I just saw the program here, and the CTG appears to be the most important tool for actually preventing the neonatal mortalities. The neonatal mortality, I was a deputy director also. We know that we are going to achieve the SDG goals, and neonatal mortality has been brought from 54 per 1000 live born to the 24. And by 2030, for the SDG goal, we have to bring it further. In India, we have also brought the maternal mortality down by in Maharashtra and Kerala. So all these figures are so important for the development of the nation and for achieving the goals. So I am happy that Delhi Gynec Forum has kept such an important workshop on this CTG and their interpretation, their clinical cases. All the experts are here, and I am very happy that it is going to benefit all the attendees, and it is going to help them to take the clinical judgments and also prevent the neonatal deaths. With this, Again, I say thank you very much, Sujata, Tarini, and everyone from the Delhi Gynec Forum to invite me as a guest of honor for this very, very important program. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your kind words. And I want to extend my sincere thanks to Dr. Sharda Jain, Delhi Gynae Forum General Secretary. She's always there with us, and she always encourages all the members of Gynae Forum Delhi to do webinars and in teaching, and she's a teacher of teachers. Now, our chairpersons, Dr. Archana Verma, she's Vice President-elect Foxy North Zone, and she has got so many achievements. Dr. Tarini Taneja ma'am, she's a Bharat Gaurav Samman Awardee, Wonder Foxy Awardee, and she has done a webinar few weeks back only, UPCOG, and which was a huge success. And now I request Dr. Tarini ma'am to introduce the moderators.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sujata, for giving me this opportunity. First of all, I really take my proud privilege to give my heartfelt thanks to Dr. Ma'am for giving this opportunity to organize the CTG Traces to Cases. I'm really proud of her, and she is really wonderful person, and she is working for the wellness of the women. And now my Pyar Bhara Namaskar to everyone, Sharda ma'am, my guest of honor for today, Madhuwala of the Foxy, Dr. Mandakini B, the ICOG chairperson. So now I it's a really pleasure, take proud privilege to introduce my dear friend, Dr. Sujata. She is very academic these days, and she is really dedicated to the women health. She has done her MBBS MD from KGMC, and she is fellow of ICOG. She has done the postgraduate diploma in sonology, and she is the fellow of
Dr. Chanchal, can you stop sharing your screen? Dr. Chanchal, sorry for interruption.
Sorry. Okay. I'll stop
surgery, FAMS, that's a World Association of Laparoscopic Surgeons, and she's GWS2 from Royal Women's College, Australia. And she attained the institute. One is the IVY Health and Infertility Center, and other one is the Heart and Gynae Clinic, Sarita Vihar, that is the Indraprasth Apollo Hospital, New Delhi. And there are so many achievements to her care, but going to enumerate the few one, so not to finish all the time in this. So one is the APJ Abdul Kalam Award from DGFS, and she is the member of Executive Committee, South Delhi Gynae Forum. And her area of interest is the infertility, ultrasound, antenatal screening, and refreshing others, and conducting the webinar these days in COVID time. That is the blessing in disguise. And this is about the moderator, Dr. Sujata Agrawal. The other moderator is Dr. Chanchal, and her qualification, she is the MBBS from Lady Harding, she is the MD from Maulana Azad, and she is a MRCOG from UK in FICOG. She has done fellowship maternal fetal medicine from NUH Singapore, that is accredited from the UK, and her designation is she's the lead consultant fetal medicine in the institution of Bright Right by Rainbow Hospital, Malviya Nagar, New Delhi. And her area of interest is antenatal screening, high-risk pregnancy, especially fetal growth restriction, and multiple pregnancy and fetal depression. And academic activities are many more. So over to Dr. Sujata, the moderator for today. Okay.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tarini, for kind introduction. So I just want to introduce my panelists quickly. Dr. Harsha Khuller, she is Vice President and Senior Consultant, Department of Obs and Gynae, Shri Gangaram Hospital, and she's a very known gynecologist of Delhi. Another one, Dr. Meenakshi Ahuja, she needs no introduction. She is our past President, DG Delhi Gynae Forum, and she's Academic Secretary, Delhi Gynae Forum, and she's Director of Fortis Law Firm. Dr. Archana Batra, she's another panelist who needs no introduction. She's President, Narchi Delhi, Professor, Safdarjung Hospital. Dr. Deepthi Nap, she's a Director of Mother and Child Center. She's Visiting Consultant MEX, and she's Secretary, Delhi Gynae Forum East. We have Dr. Surekha. Surekha is from Maharashtra, my very close friend from Wardha. She's a professor in Jawaharlal Nehru Medical College. Some noise is coming. So may I request everybody to mute themselves? Dr. Tarini, can you mute yourself, please? Dr. Tarini, please mute yourself. Thank you, ma'am. So Dr. Surekha, she's another great teacher, professor in a medical college. Dr. Ashok, he's busy, so he's not able to come here. And Dr. Kishore also got stuck in some emergency, so he might come later and join us. So where we are, we all know birth asphyxia is a leading cause of neonatal mortality. And each year, 4 to 9 million cases of newborn asphyxia occurs. And out of, in India, 7.5 lakhs neonatal die every year. And out of these, 5 to 10, birth asphyxia is 5 to 10 per 1,000 live birth, and stillbirth rate is 35 per 1,000 live births, very, very high. And out of these, 25% are intrapartum. And we all know still there is no national clinical guideline. We have to revisit intrapartum fetus surveillance, and CTG is one of our tools. CTG, we all know it can be external, it can be internal. External, we are doing external because internal needs spatial probe and membranes should be ruptured, cervix should be dilated. Admission test, in most of the hospitals we are doing admission test, but it has been seen that. Dr. Tarini, kindly mute yourself. Dr. Tarini, thank you, ma'am. So admission test in low risk women does not improve obstetrical outcome as compared to intermittent auscultation.
Okay.
It may help clinician to pick up high risk situations. And negative predictive value is excellent. Normal CTG, very healthy fetus, but positive predictive value is very low. Many times we do cesarean and baby is coming out with good APGAR and crying. The CTG trace look like this. The upper one is fetal heart sound. These are the movements perceived by mother. These are the movements perceived by machine, and these are contractions. Paper setting 1 centimeter per minute according to NICE 2017 guideline. And if we see CTG closely, the vertical big bar is 20 beats. The small, this is 10 beats, and this rectangular is 5 beats. Paper speed is 1 centimeter. This is 1 centimeter, 2, 3, 4. And if we see these are the marked fetal heart sounds here and here. Between these two markings, the area is 9 centimeter or 9 minutes. And we can tear it paper from here also for our records. Now, we must see maternal heartbeat. We must check maternal heartbeat and simultaneously auscultate fetal heart sounds according to 2017 guidelines, because many times we can misinterpret and fall in trouble. Interpretation of CTG, we both want to everybody to always remember this formula, Dr. C. Brevedo, and always make a habit to read CTG according to this formula only. DR is defined risk, contractions, baseline fetal heart, variability, accelerations, decelerations, and other factors. So defined risk factors, antenatal maternal factors, hypertension, eclampsia, diabetes, APH, other diseases. Fetal factors, IUGR, prematurity, oligohydramnios, RH is very important, multiple gestation in breech. And during labor, it can be preterm, postterm meconium staining. Quickly, uterine contractions, more important is to see frequency of contractions. So this is mainly more important in external CTG. Baseline fetal heart rate, we all know 110 to 160. This is the mean level of stable fetal heart rate we see in 10 minutes, and it should be there at least for 2 minutes. Interpretation of fetal heart rate, 110 to 160 normal, 110 to 109 non-reassuring, less than 100 abnormal, more than 180 abnormal, 160 to 179 again non-reassuring. So this way we interpret fetal heart sounds. These are the causes of fetal tachycardia and bradycardia. We are going to cover them again in later. And variability is very important. Fluctuation beat to beat. It indicates intact sympathetic parasympathetic nervous system. This is the effect on AV node. It is a reassuring feature, and decreased variability is seen in preterm babies, in some drugs, in hypoxic conditions, in certain anomalies, and in sleep cycle. Normal variability 5 to 25. Non-reassuring, less than 5 for 30 minutes, or extended till 50 minutes, more than 25 for 20 minutes, and abnormal, always remember this, less than 5 for more than 50 minutes, more than 25 for more than 25 minutes, or sinusoidal pattern. This slide shows a very reactive, good variability fetal heart trace. And this is a very poor variability. You can compare this and this. Now, acceleration, we all know, increase in fetal heart rate, at least for 15 beats per minute, lasting for 15 seconds. Presence of acceleration is reassuring. Absence of acceleration means nothing. It is of uncertain significance. This is a good acceleration we can see here. Deceleration again, fall in heart rate for 15 minutes, lasting for 15 seconds. And deceleration can be episodic or unprovoked, periodic, early periodic, late, and variable, and atypical decelerations. Slide. So important point we should notice in deceleration are how deep they are, for how many duration they are. Are they related to contractions? They are returning to baseline or not? And for how long they are persist? And are they with more than 50% contractions? And early decelerations, they start with contraction. They are mirror image due to vagal stimulation. There is a complete recovery. This is basically because of head compression in second stage of labor. And they are non-concerning. The late deceleration, it's a sign of hypoxia. It starts after contractions. And it is basically due to uteroplacental insufficient blood flow. It is basically seen in maternal hypotension, excessive uterine activity, and they are never accompanied by acceleration, and they are concerning if present in CTG. So these are early deceleration. We can see very well with contractions. And these are late decelerations. The maximum deceleration is after contraction. Now variable decelerations. Variable decelerations, they are not related to contractions. They are variable, intermittent, periodic, and they have no relation with contraction. They are the commonest type due to transient cord compression, and it stimulates baroreceptor and vagal stimulation, and it causes bradycardia. And in concerning features are loss lasting more than 1 minute, failure to return to baseline, low variability, no shouldering, biphasic. This is a biphasic type of deceleration. And the causes of variable deceleration are basically cord compression in oligohydramnios, or after membranes are ruptured, or nuchal cord, and when the presenting part is going down. So this is the nice guideline of 2007 interpretation. We must know what is normal, and we must know what is abnormal, and anything in between is non-reassuring. So we all know heartbeat 110 to 160 normal, variability 5 to 25 is normal, and no deceleration or variable deceleration with no concerning feature less than 90 minutes. And non-reassuring, these all are non-reassuring. It's a big table, so I'm just skipping it, and we'll be covering this one by one with our cases. Only thing we must remember, need for urgent intervention, acute bradycardia or prolonged deceleration lasting more than 30 minutes. And this needs urgent intervention by a senior. We quickly check hypotension, uterine stimulation, do a quick PV cord prolapse, is there is placental aberration or scar tenderness, and delivery should be done within 9 minutes. Maximum 9 minutes are there. Now with this background, am I audible? Hello, Chanchal, am I audible now?
Yeah, madam,
Yes,
you
ma'am.
are audible.
Okay,
You are audible.
okay, thank you
Yes.
so much. So now
You
we
are
are coming to our proper panel discussion, and I will request all our panelists to please join us. Dr. Harsha, kindly take this case. We need your expert opinion for this case. This is a lady, and this is her CTG. So how will you read this CTG? I'm going to tell you this risk factor later.
Okay. Dr. Sujata, you have explained beautifully that how to read the CTG, because I can see that from this graph, it's looking like a 1 centimeter graph. And the thing is, as you said, that bradycardia is less than 110 and more than 180 is a tachycardia. So in this case, we can see that the fetal heart is going more than 180, right? So I can see that there is good variability, and the fetal tachycardia is also there. So I would like to know that what is the maternal pulse like, because as you said that maternal pulse should also be counted. So we want to know that whether the patient is having any temperature or not.
Yeah. So ma'am, she's a primary gravida, 26 years old, 37 weeks by gestation. She's complaining of fever from last 2 days. So maternal pulse is around 110 beats per minute. Usually it can be seen here, but the older CTG machine, they don't show maternal pulse. And she's also complaining of diminished fetal movements. You have very rightly said, ma'am, this patient is having tachycardia with normal variability, and few accelerations are also there.
Yes.
So how will you treat this patient, and what will be your advice for this patient?
So this patient, she is having fever for last 2 days. So first of all, our aim should be to diagnose that what is the cause of the fever, right? So we have to send some investigations also. We have to see that if the temperature is more, whether what is the leukocyte count like, and whether platelets are normal or not. And secondly, in this COVID era, we have to keep in mind about the COVID infection also. So because the management will differ if the patient is COVID positive or COVID negative, because then we have to isolate the patient, suppose she's COVID positive. And secondly, that we'll have to give her the antibiotic. Suppose she's having she's not in labor, and we find that with heart is persistent tachycardia, and the once we give her this antipyretic and the fever settles, so we can wait and watch, but she should be on continuous monitoring. In the meantime, we should see for the investigations. Secondly, suppose the patient is having contractions, we should see that whether she is in early labor or not. Suppose we find that she's in early labor, we can always do her ARM to see that whether there is any meconium or not, because she's already 37 weeks of pregnancy, right? And secondly, that if there is meconium, then of course the problem is solved, that we'll have to take her for cesarean section, and she's in early labor. Suppose patient is in advanced labor, 4 or 5 centimeters, 6 centimeters. So we can keep her on continuous monitoring along with the antibiotics, and we can see further if there is no obstetric cause of delivering her by cesarean section, we can always deliver her vaginally also.
Yeah.
Thirdly, then on ARM, suppose we find that there is sign of sepsis, that purulent discharge is there. So in that case,
so ma'am, we'll come to that case later. So briefly, you have explained everything in great detail. This patient is just a normal ANC patient with fever, and that's why there is a fetal tachycardia. So we'll basically reassure her and give her antipyretic, and we'll ask her to keep an eye over her movements. And if movements still they are less, we can do a repeat CTG next day, and we can call her for Doppler. Dr. Chanchal, you want to add something on this in this case? Dr. Chanchal?
I think you summarized it quite well.
Okay, so should we proceed?
Yes, Dr. Sujata, I just want to clarify what is the hemoglobin?
Ma'am, her CBC, there is no other factor. Okay, ma'am, we'll rule out maternal tachycardia, maternal anemia as the cause of fetal tachycardia. Sure. Okay. So we'll be doing, we'll be screening her for fever. We'll be ruling out anemia, infections. Is she taking any drug or maternal hypotension? And fetal causes of tachycardia is basically choriomyelitis and fetal arrhythmias. And with this, we are moving our second case. Dr. Surekha,
okay.
Kindly take this and give us.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sujata, for this case. Now we can see that this is again a case who is having fetal tachycardia. You can see that the rising pattern of and if, again we are also seeing a little bit of reduced variability in this case. Another thing we can identify in this case is that when you look at the tachograph, tochodynamometer, we can see that there are few contractions also. So as you can see, there are few contractions. In fact, there are a number of contractions seen in this patient. So basically this patient is of fetal tachycardia. Various causes are there. So I would like to know whether
about the case history.
Yes.
So this patient is para 1, gravida 2, first normal delivery. She's 29 years of age. She's 32 weeks, came with pre-RM and complaining of fever and foul smelling discharge. On examination, breech with temperature 101. So you have anything else you want to add on CTG?
I think,
age, yeah.
Yeah, so now the key points of this patient are that she is preterm and she is having PROM. And as you have said, there are signs of infection with fever and foul smelling discharge. CTG has the tachycardia, absent accelerations, no decelerations, beat to beat variability is less, and mild frequent activity is there. And of course, there is a breach.
So, Dr. Sulekha, can we interpret these dips as deceleration because she's a preterm?
Yeah.
Shallow decelerations.
So these are shallow ones, and we have to remember then whether she's preterm, the parasympathetic and sympathetic system is not enough mature. So we have to take these decelerations as well as the loss of variability with a pinch of salt. So basically, we would have to look at the clinical history, and as she is preterm, we need to, those have to be looked into. Now, again, you have to remember that there is history of leaking here and foul smelling discharge. So features of chorioamnionitis are there. So we have to check for the vitals. If there is maternal tachycardia, that may be the reason of the fetal tachycardia. And of course, there is a sign of infection also. Per speculum examination, we need to avoid per vaginal examination in these cases. Let us remember that we don't do per vaginal examination in patients of chorioamnionitis. And of course, we need to do the total count and differential count. And we may do a sonogram to find out the fluid index and the fetal weight of this patient. And of course, we can send the blood sample for culture of this patient. Now we need to decide for the management, how to go for the management of this patient, because it is a case of chorioamnionitis at 32 weeks of gestation. We won't be giving the steroids with the fear of spreading the infection, but we have to go for a broad spectrum antibiotic. Because we have to cover both the gram positive, gram negative, as well as the anaerobe. So we usually go for 2 grams of ampicillin and then metronidazole, and we also go for either gentamicin or amikacin. Group B streptococcus also we need to cover.
So with this trace, would you like to wait for corticosteroids, or you will directly go on for delivering this baby? Because this baby looks with decelerations, decreased variability, tachycardia. It's looking.
Now, see, I would not so much pay attention to the trace. The patient is of chorioamnionitis. That is what I'm going to, first of all, keep into mind. Yeah, okay. So a chorioamnionitis case usually requires a termination. Steroids I would not give because there is a sign of infection, and steroids I may not prefer in this case. Okay, and there are no recommendation also. ACOG as well as our COG board do not recommend steroids in case of chorioamnionitis. Basically, when there is a foul smelling discharge, which suggests that it is a sort of a chronic PROM and a sign of infection.
Okay, and what about magnesium sulfate?
Magnesium sulfate can be given. Okay, there is no contraindication to magnesium sulfate. And as far as chorioamnionitis is concerned, once you have started the broad spectrum antibiotics, there may not be an emergency to terminate the pregnancy unless she's in labor. She is breech. If she's in labor, then it's a different matter. Otherwise, we can give her the magnesium sulfate.
Okay, so then thank you, Dr. Surekha. Dr. Chanchal, you want to add something?
Hi, good evening, everyone. Hi.
Hi.
So Dr. Surekha has very nicely summarized all the pertinent points. And as she said that once we have to treat the patient, not the CTG. So this patient has frank chorioamnionitis, which in itself is an indication to terminate the pregnancy. The mode of delivery will be decided by the presentation, the vaginal examination findings. As far as decelerations in a preterm fetus are concerned, they will have a baseline tachycardia. The variability will be less. It is only persistent and repeated decelerations that are of importance even in a preterm fetus. That is.
Thank you, Dr. Chanchal. So our third case, I would like Dr. Meenakshi Ahuja kindly take this case and give your expert opinion. This is a CTG trace, not very clear, but I think we can read it. Baseline is 170 here.
Yeah, we have a baseline of 170, and then we are having dipsia. As far as the contractions are concerned, they are almost not there. Can I have the history of the patient?
Yeah, sure. So she's a para 1, gravida 6. She had 4 abortions, 1 normal delivery. She's 37 weeks per gestation and 36 years old lady. She has got Epla syndrome on low molecular weight heparin, and she took 40 milligrams at 9 a.m. and now she came at 7 a.m. with pain since 2 p.m. and CTG.
Okay, so that's all we have of the CTG, nothing beyond this?
Yeah, no. So baseline is 170, which is not very clear. And you can comment on decelerations and uterine activity.
Yeah, so the uterine activity seems to be, of course, she's just having very few and isolated contractions, which are not even very strong. But the heartbeat keeps on dipping every time she has a contraction, and they are post-contraction dips. So yes, they are delayed dips, which can be significant. And it is a very, very precious pregnancy. So I think
Yeah.
probably because she has lost 4 pregnancies earlier and she has only one live issue, and she is a diagnosed APLA syndrome. So, I mean, I would personally feel that the first thing is I would probably start an IV line for her after admission to see whether, with hydration and all, it improves any little. But definitely, I would like to plan for delivery, even though she has taken low molecular weight heparin early in the morning at 9 a.m. after doing her necessary testing that we would do for her coagulation
Okay.
and all.
So will you be worried about bleeding in this case? Like she got around the few hours, 7 hours back, she got heparin. So do you
Yeah,
think so? It's yeah.
So like I said, that of course we are all very happy to deliver at 24 hours after delivery, but if I will get a coagulation profile done at this time. We know that low molecular weight heparin actually doesn't trouble us so much. So definitely if there is a non-reassuring CTG, even after we are having giving her an IV fluid or supportive management, if it is still not reassuring, then I think I would at least like to deliver her. Although you said there are 4 abortions, they're not, term losses or anything like that. But
Yeah.
it is a precious pregnancy at the end of the day, and we know that she's APLA positive.
So thank you, Dr. Meenakshi. This CTG test definitely indicates chronic hypoxia, and the pregnancy should be terminated. And these are the features of gradually evolving hypoxia. First is decelerations, and then they become wider and deeper, and with reduced variability, and gradually fetal heart rate goes down, and the end is death. So we should not wait till that last thing. And trace warrant delivery is deceleration without baseline variability, baseline tachycardia without decelerations, prolonged deceleration more than 3 minutes, and sinusoidal pattern. So case 4, Dr. Deepti, are you there?
Yeah.
Dr. Chanchal, you want to add something in the previous case?
I think we've covered it quite well.
Okay,
This
thank
patient
you.
needs delivery.
Okay.
There's no doubt about that.
Okay. So Dr. Deepti, this is a trace.
Yeah. So looking at the trace, a bit hazy, but if I follow the Dr. C. Bravado guidelines, I would see that there are contractions, and there are good contractions. There is good variability. The heart rate is also normal, at least in the initial part of the trace. And then suddenly I find a long and a very, very prolonged acceleration, which apparently is more than 5 minutes. I can't see this very well.
Yeah, it's not very clear trace.
Yeah.
So this lady is, I'm just telling you the history. She is a para 1 gravid 2, first term pregnancy, first normal delivery. She's on oxytocin.
Yeah. So when I look at that long prolonged acceleration for more than perhaps 5 to 6 minutes, what is it that I will do? First thing is I will calm my nerves and I will tell myself not to overreact and call the anesthetist, jaldi se aajo, Caesar kar denge. But I will try to keep myself cool and recollect what all I have learned so far. So first thing first is I follow the 6 pearls. See what position she is. We avoid the supine position, whether she's hydrated. And once I put her in the lateral position, I stop the syntocinon drip immediately, because for all I know, the cause of deceleration might be iatrogenic, could be syntocinon. I've stopped the drip, put her on a lateral position. I have started oxygen inhalation. And if I find that they have contractions and I keep my hand on her abdomen, the contractions are still there, I might think of a tocolysis, terbutaline, subcutaneous 25, or I might think of nitroglycerin if that is readily available and in the labor room. And once I've done all this, I'll do a PV, because many a times, keeping in mind the indication, whether she came in normal labor, why did I have to induce her? What was indication? Was it oligohydramnios? So many a times, cord compression can also lead to such a condition. Look for cord prolapse. I will find the dilatation of the cervix, the station of the head. If I can do an immediate delivery of forceps or infuse, I will go for that right away. But in case
while I'm doing all this, I keep the rule of 3, 6, and 9 in my mind. Now, just in case while I'm doing this PV, I put my hand on the abdomen, my assistant recording her blood pressure and her pulse, and we find that she's not going to deliver fast. Many a times, while you done the remedial measures, the heart rate pattern goes down to normal. If that happens, you can still discuss with the patient and you can give us a trial, you can continue, but I will be doubtful whether I like to restart her Syntocinon or not. Keeping the rule of 3, 6, and 9 minutes, if I find that despite all my remedial measures, she's not improving, the deceleration is continuing, the fetal heart tracing is not good, I have shifted her to the OT. And if she's not about to deliver, I will see to it that she's delivered within 9 minutes of when I first saw the tracing of deceleration.
So thank you so much. This was really wonderful. And this patient, as you mentioned, we stopped Syntocinon, and she, after some time and change of posture, it was due to cord compression and the traces become normal. See, it was a normal before also, and she delivered vaginally. So Dr. Chanchal, you want to say something about this case?
No, I think our panelists are doing a great job.
Okay, so this is the rule of 3, 6, which she was
3,
mentioning.
6, 9, 12. So the idea is to deliver the child if the baby by 12 minutes.
Okay. So we should have an in-house anesthetist. That is the, I think, pre-requirement. Cause of acute hypoxia in active labor: cord prolapse, cord stretching, retroplacental bleed, scar dehiscence, and acute hypertension. So all these 4 causes can cause that type of picture we just saw. Case number 5, Dr. Achla. I'll request Dr. Achla ma'am to come and please.
So what you can see from this trace is that the baseline is 150 initially. There are some acceleration, but after that, but beat to beat variability seems to be okay. So can I have this thing?
Bigger view?
32 years, 30 weeks, severe PET, vertex on Maxelf and steroids. So
yes.
Can you enlarge this thing? Let me see the beat to beat. How much is it? So the beat to beat seems to be less in the later tracings. Initially it is okay, but when you go to the later half of the tracing, the beat to beat in between is less, and then at places it is, most of the places it is less. So this is the patient in which she has taken drugs. Steroids, they tend to decrease beat to beat variability. And even Maxelf is known to cause transient decrease in the beat-to-beat variability. So I think this patient, like she is to be managed for her severe preeclampsia, we have to just keep monitoring her and do a longer, at least 30 minute CTG to see that this is not persistent. And when the effect of the drug will go, if it becomes okay, then we manage her as a severe preeclampsia at 30 weeks.
Yeah. So the drug effect is basically decrease in variability, and there are no decelerations. And where is that slide gone? Okay. Dr. Chanchal, you want to add something?
I think, Dr. Chanchal, that's fine.
That's fine. Okay.
Yeah.
So you want to take the next case, Dr. Chanchal?
Sure.
Okay. Okay.
So this case is for Dr. Harsha. Ma'am, can you see the trace?
Dr. Harsha, are you there?
Dr. Harsha?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, yes, we can hear you now, ma'am. We can hear you now.
Yeah. So, Dr. Chanchal, this case, the CTG tracing is showing that it's a poor variability. And of course, there is some, this thing, she's getting contractions also. And I don't know, I can't see the later part of the graph. Can I see the later part of the graph, please?
Ma'am, this is only you can see.
Okay, I think it is behind that because there is deceleration also. And
yeah, this is
for a little longer time. So I would like to know that whether the patient is in labor. Okay, she has come with abdomen and BP is 140.
So this is a 24-year-old priming gravida, 36 weeks gestation. She came with pain abdomen, and on examination, her abdomen is tense and her blood pressure is 140/100.
Yes. So as I said that the variability is very poor and her blood pressure is high. So my diagnosis will be that she might be having accidental hemorrhage. So in such case, we'll have to see that whether the patient, she is already dilated, because it can be, is there any history of bleeding PV or not? If there is no bleeding PV, it can be a concealed type of hemorrhage. And then we'll have to do her PV to see whether she's in labor, she's dilated or not. If dilated, we can do her ARM. And she's in early labor, blood stain like. Of course, before that, we have to keep everything ready. We have to keep this thing blood ready, and we have to do all the tests to see for that this thing PT, APTT also to see for any effect also, because if there is too much of blood inside, it can lead to hypofibrinogenemia also. So we have to be ready with all the blood, blood products also. So, and we have to do other investigations to see, because she's case of preeclampsia and that whether albumin is present or not. But labor, we can do her ARM, and she's in early labor, platelet is still there. We can do the delivery immediately by cesarean section. And secondly, if she is in late 7-8 centimeters like that, we can keep the patient on continuous monitoring and deliver her vaginally also, and seeing that fetal heart remains okay and the head is also low. So if there is no any other obstetric indication of delivering her immediately, means by cesarean section. And secondly, of course, I think it will be good that if we deliver her immediately by doing the cesarean section.
That's excellently put, ma'am. So there are two very excellently summarized, ma'am. So the important thing is that this is an unprovoked deceleration. So you can see that the heart rate dips. It may not fit into the definition of deceleration because the loss of beats is not more than 15 beats per minute. But that drop without this unprovoked deceleration with decreased variability, it is ominous. And as you rightly pointed out, that an abnormal CTG is not synonymous with an emergency cesarean. The mode of delivery will be guided by the vaginal examination.
Yes.
Chanchal?
हाँ जी.
आप ले
You
लो
want
ये
me
भी?
to do?
Yeah, हाँ,
हाँ,
please.
ठीक है. Hi, Dr. Surekha. Dr. Surekha.
Dr. Surekha,
Hello.
are you there?
Yes, I'm. Yes.
So this is the trace that we want you to comment on, Dr. Surekha. We'll give you the history afterwards.
So as we go, there's traction or there, or maybe not there at all. Okay, my internet connection is unstable. Are you able to hear me?
Yeah, in bits and
Hello?
pieces.
Now
Yeah.
we can
Am
hear
I
you.
audible?
Yeah, now
Yes.
we can hear you.
Okay.
Yeah, madam. You are
Okay, so
perfectly
no
audible.
contractions are there. Okay, and you can see that the baseline is around 130 and almost absent variability is there. Okay, no variability almost, and no acceleration, no deceleration, almost a flat line kind of CTG. So if you can give me, yes. So she's
She's
a
a
39
31-year-old.
Mhm.
Gestational diabetic, though it is controlled on diet. She reported with the absent fetal movements, and this was the CTG.
Okay, so gestational
She's not in
diabetes,
labor.
39. Yes,
No,
absent
not in
fetal
labor.
movement, not in labor, but the CTG is not good. Okay, CTG is not good because we could call it an abnormal CTG. You know, because almost an absent variability and no acceleration. Though there are no decelerations, but still we have the patient being a diabetic and already 39 weeks of gestation. So we need, this is a patient where, you know, absent fetal movements, there are chances that we may have an IUD here. So we can go for this patient, we can go and find out what is the estimated fetal weight. Clinically also we can judge and go and find out the Doppler findings. What are the Doppler findings? Also that also would tell us, of course, this there is a need for imminent delivery for this patient, and of course you have to advise admission, and I would not prefer to go for induction for this patient doesn't look sort of a patient who could tolerate an induction with that kind of chronic hypoxia. We need to counsel her. Again, the mode of delivery, as per the guidelines, maybe we have to go by the what is the presentation, what is the cervical score, and we can counsel her. But again, the chances are that she may land up in a cesarean section.
So, as you very rightly commented, that this is a high-risk pregnancy. She is a GDM, though it is controlled on diet, and she has a complaint. She's come with absent movements. So, and at one glance, this is only a 20-minute trace, but it is the absence of acceleration is of no significance in an intrapartum trace. This patient is not in labor. So here I would expect that there should be some accelerations. So once you see this trace with a variability which is less than 5, there are no accelerations. The baseline is okay and there are no deceleration, agreed. But however, given the context of the high risk, this patient needs to be admitted and resuscitative measures need to be started. A Bishop's score is important. If the CTG improves, as you said, that the decision for induction oblique and cesarean would be determined by her Bishop's score. If they suppose that she is 2-finger loose and if there is on scalp stimulation, there are accelerations, then you might want to induce it.
Chanchal, here I would like to make a comment. I don't want this message to go that gestational diabetes, absent movement, and you find a short graph of decreased variability and you prepare for cesarean. I think she needed, what she needed was a blood sugar boost, and then at least the 30 minutes, CTG to see whether it is persisting before we took a decision. Like,
so Dr. Achla, our aim is to give a message. This patient is coming with this kind of history. Many times they say, "Jao chini pi ke aao, chai pi ke aao." We should not do this.
Jana nahi.
Seriously,
she doesn't have to go.
We should admit her and keep an eye.
Be admitted. But I would not say admission and cesarean. That would be a wrong message going that every patient who comes with absent movement, gestational diabetes, do advise cesarean.
And we must keep in mind that there is more risk of sudden IUD in diabetes.
Yeah, so she has to be there with you, but not a cesarean straight.
Yeah. No, that's exactly our point, man. That is why we've kept this case. That a high-risk patient who comes with a decreased fetal movement with a trace like this, it is not synonymous with delivery. It is an abnormal trace at this point in time. But once you ask her to get the left lateral position and she eats something and there is an acceleration, so this is just a snapshot in time. So any abnormal CTG calls for further observation, resuscitative measures. If it improves, this patient may as well go home if she starts perceiving movements. Because as per guidelines, GDM on diet, they can be absolutely induced post-term.
But one comment I would like to make, ma'am, we cannot send this patient home. Though
she's 39 weeks.
So 39 weeks. So 39 weeks gestational diabetes, even if she's controlled on diet, warrants that now the termination of pregnancy is warranted. Now,
I agree.
Case, yes. So whether the mode of delivery again will be decided by her Bishop's score and findings, and of course, as suggested. But we need to have a longer trace.
She's a primey. Yeah.
Just to add, GDM on diet, you can wait till 40 weeks.
Yes. Now the ACOG criteria are saying that 39 weeks, GDM and diet, you may induce.
Anything.
I'll just make one point because the patient is 39 weeks pregnant. She's got gestational diabetes. She's coming with absent fetal movement. So
I think we should deliver her.
Yes, we should not send her back home.
I should deliver her fine, but not cesarean.
Yes,
that was my
not cesarean, and she can be induced also depending on
her Bishop's. Yeah, maybe. But she needs admission and delivery for sure.
Yeah, definitely agree. Yes.
So these are the causes of sudden IUD in diabetic pregnancy. And next case to Dr. Meenakshi. Are you there, ma'am? This is a very tricky case. Dr. Meenakshi Ahuja, we need your expert advice. Dr. Meenakshi?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
Okay. So the first thing I can see is that there is persistent bradycardia. We are at less than 110 throughout the trace. Yeah. And I would want a history. I don't think I should be interpreting it with.
Okay. So this patient is 28 years old.
Huh.
First normal delivery, and she was advised cesarean in some other hospital.
Okay.
And she said, "Oh, I don't want to get it done." She came, nurse started CTG,
So, but
and
you
she
know,
called
the
you.
trace is a little this thing. I think first thing I would like to, firstly, why was a cesarean done in the other hospital is important. Why were they advising a cesarean in the other hospital? Secondly, the heartbeat is around 100. I would definitely like to be sure that it's not a maternal tracing. And, you know, like there may be an IUD or something, and we are missing the maternal heartbeat here and mistaking that as the trace of the fetus. So I would like to first correlate this with the maternal pulse.
Very true. So we always auscultate simultaneously fetal heart and maternal pulse, palpate maternal pulse, because sometimes we can interpret this trace as a normal trace and we can land up into later problems. So the ultrasound was done and IUD was confirmed. So this is the main message which I want to give and Dr. Meenakshi wants to give, that always feel maternal pulse. Dr. Chanchal, you want to add something?
Important. I think that's once there is.
May I add something?
Yeah, please.
So before going for the CTG, I think we have to examine the patient also. And yes, and
that was done by nurse, na? When you came, we diagnosed IUD.
Yeah. So actually, that's the way we start with a history and an examination. And once you don't find a fetal heart, and this looks like a case because there are no contractions also, probably the fetal heart was not traceable, and that's why the CTG tracing was done. But this is not at all reassuring, and we have to see that if it's in correlation with the maternal pulse, it's obviously an IUD which has to be checked, or anyway, the ultrasound needs to be done to confirm where we are.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So the maternal pulse is around 100 here, and we should not ask our nurses to send us WhatsApp pictures, because that can also create problems. Absolutely. That is another message. So Dr. Deepti, are you there? Dr. Deepti?
I'm there.
Oh, this is, can you please explain this CTG for our viewers?
So from what I can see, there are no contractions. Maybe she's not in labor. And this is good beat to beat variability. The fetal heart is also kind of stable around 130 per minute. The variability is good. Fetal heart tracing is good. There are good accelerations, no decelerations, and she is not in labor from what I can see.
Yeah.
What
so
about
this lady is para 1 gravida 2 first normal delivery, 30 years old, 40 plus 4 weeks by gestation. And she came for routine checkup, and this is a CTG. So what advice you will give? Would you like to induce her or reassure her?
So there is what I will do, what I generally do. Let me start with that. So any patient who comes to me and she is gravida 2, first normal vaginal delivery, she is 40 plus 4 weeks. Though the CTG is reassuring, I will still ask her, give her a choice that I may give her induction of labor if she's willing, but then the patients come and say that thandi darde, etc., not willing. So what I will do, I check her up, do a pervaginal examination. If she's a second gravida, most of them have a very patulous os, and you can insert your finger. I might like to go in for dilatation and stripping, because we all know that this leads to release of prostaglandins, and what studies have shown that many a times this mechanical sweeping and stretching and dilatation does hasten the duration of pregnancy by about 3 to 4 days and may induce labor. If even if she wants to go home and come back again, but the very fact that something has been done for her is very reassuring for the patient. So I may go in for this, for a stretching and sweeping, send her back home, call her again after 48 hours for an NST, for a CTG again. But I will not advise her for cesarean right away, definitely.
Yeah. So very nicely explained, ma'am. She's a post-term patient with normal CTG, no other problem, good fetal movements. So we should not rush up, and we can do a proper counseling and we can advise her to come back again. So Dr. Chanchal, I want to ask you, kindly explain, since you are a person of fetal medicine, is there any role of color Doppler and BPP at this stage?
Yes, yeah. So for all post-dated pregnancies, we would want to document that we are not missing out on a growth restricted fetus, the fluid is okay. So at 40, if they cross their due date, then a color Doppler and an NST would be reassuring if we decide to wait till 41 days. That should be done.
Thank you, Dr. Chanchal. So this is postpartum pregnancy, rule out any problem, fetal monitoring, BPP, color Doppler, induction at 41 weeks. Dr. Achla?
Yeah.
Ma'am, your expert opinion about this trace?
Yeah, so here we can see that 2 minutes, more than 2 minutes, the fetal heart is always around 180. That is one obvious feature we have. And we are having late deceleration, we can see, and they're quite deep.
Yes.
Can I have the extra?
Yeah, sure. So they are coming after contraction. She is para 2, Gavrathi, 2 normal deliveries, 32 weeks, 39 weeks per gestation. In active labor, no other factor. And CTG is like
what I would like to do is, examine her and see whether she is in second stage, or sometimes in second stage we get all kind of deceleration. So first thing I would do would be do a PV for her. And if the delivery is imminent, like then it is okay. If she is 3-4 centimeters or something with this kind of a thing, then I would not like to wait further, and then probably prepare her for cesarean and see other factors also meanwhile, whether she's on induction or not. Is she lying supine? Though lying supine also will not cause this kind of picture with so much of tachycardia and late deceleration. So unless she's going to deliver in 30 minutes, 1 hour, I would like to do a cesarean.
Okay. So now she has got two factors. One is tachycardia, other is late deceleration, lasting for 2 to 4 minutes. So we should not wait for more than 30 minutes, and we should aim to deliver her within 30 minutes. And as you said, we'll correct all other factors. Thank you so much, ma'am. Why it is not moving? So next case, Dr. Chanchal?
Yeah. So Dr. Yeah, any of my esteemed panelists, Dr. Harsha, would you like to comment on this case, ma'am? This trace?
Yes, this trace that is showing that fetal heart variability, although is there, but there are this thing decelerations, and fetal heart is going till 80 also, and with contractions also there is that deceleration. So I would like to know that whether the patient is in labor, because she's getting contractions, she must be in labor only. She's fully dilated and it is at +1. So I think it is better that we deliver her immediately, right? Because it might be due to head compression also. Absolutely. And sometimes it can be due to the cord also. We have seen that cord lying by the side of the head or around the head also. So it might be due to the cord compression that this is happening.
Yeah. So the reason we put this case was, ma'am, can we go back to the trace, Dr. Sujata? Yeah. So the variable decelerations, the decelerations are the most difficult part to interpret in a CTG. So the most important feature which makes decelerations from significant to non-significant is the duration in which the heart rate is recovering. If they are recovering within a minute and there is variability within the deceleration, that's an acceptable intrapartum trace as per the current CTG guidelines, as per the current NICE guidelines. Right. And the fact that this patient is fully dilated and the station was already +1, you can watch this trace for another half an hour and allow her to deliver normally rather than rush into an instrumentation also, unless the decelerations become deeper and they become broader, as was the first case, the case we discussed prior to this. And she did deliver. Let's move on, Dr. Sujata. Let's move on. So she delivered within the next half an hour. Now let's come to the next case. Yeah.
Dr. Meenakshi.
Yeah. So this patient, Dr. Meenakshi, I think the trace will come on the next page. She's a 32-weeker and she's been leaking since last 72 hours. She's been admitted with PROM. There is no pain, there is no bleeding, there's no fever. Let's move on the next trace. I want to show the next trace. Next slide.
This one?
Yeah. Your
Which one?
comments
This one
on,
or this?
yeah, this one.
Okay.
Both are the same. Your comments, Dr. Meenakshi, on this trace?
I don't know whether she's there or not. Dr. Meenakshi, are you there?
Dr. Surekha? Anybody who's there? Yeah. Dr.
It looks
Surekha?
like she is in labor. Good activity.
Yeah, she is having contractions here.
170. Somebody else is speaking.
And
I think Dr. Meenakshi is back now.
Okay.
yeah, so like we can see that she's definitely having contractions here. And the fetal heart, the baseline seems to be at 170, and we seem to be having a variability here. Is there any other history you would like to let me
32
know?
weeks PPR. Prolonged leak.
Oh, that was a
Dr. Harsha, can you mute yourself?
Sorry.
Dr. Harsha, kindly mute yourself. Thank you.
Let's this is the trace I want you to comment on.
This one.
Which is the trace you want to show me? This one or the previous one?
No, this one. This is the trace we want you to comment on.
So this one, there seems to be a baseline tachycardia. And the fetal heartbeat is varying between 160 and 180. So it is definitely on the higher side, but it's a 32 weeker. So I think we have to take it in conjunction with that what is the history. We can't just kind of take any decision on this based on this.
So what I wanted to highlight, Dr. Meenakshi, can you see the smoothing of the trace? So it is moving up and down.
It is becoming, the variabilities are decreasing and the lines are becoming smoother, going on towards sinusoidal thing, not really sinusoidal now, but the variability is decreasing. As you see the lines, they're just very small variabilities there. So there is some factor which is causing severe fetal hypoxia. This is what is happening, I think, in this case. Some infection or whatever, I don't know.
Yeah. So 32 weeker and with history of leaking, it is a high-risk pregnancy. So whenever we look at the CTG, even when the line is moving up and down, you can see that beat to beat variability. The line is never this smooth. So it's almost like a sinusoidal pattern. So when on examination, this patient did have fever and the liquor was meconium stained. Can we move on to the next slide? That's how the trace, even after putting her in left lateral and giving her resuscitative measures, she was in preterm labor also. The trace has persisted like this. The trace just remained like this. What would the CRP came back as 72 and the TLC was 22,000.
There is the signs of infection. So signs of infection are there. Again, the mode of delivery. So we cannot wait for this patient, I think.
Absolutely.
We cannot wait for this patient. Again, mode of delivery would be depending on what's the vaginal examination and presentation. So if the vaginal examination is favorable for vaginal delivery, so I think we cannot wait for this patient with the sinusoidal weight pattern. It suggests an imminent delivery.
Yes, absolutely. So the CTG needs to be interpreted in context of the patient. So this patient has chorioamnionitis and needs to be. Let's move on, Dr. Sujata. Let's move on to the next case. So the baseline is 170 and there are no accelerations. There are no definite decelerations. However, you can see this typical sinusoidal pattern of the fetal heart rate. Let's go to the next page. So just enlarge a little bit of the trace to show the sinusoidal trace.
This one?
Yeah.
I think this is the maximum I can show you.
So the bishop was unfavorable. So the decision was taken to deliver her. So an emergency cesarean was performed, a baby boy of 1.8 kg. You can see that the quad pH was 6.9. So this baby was hypoxemic. And the neonate had Klebsiella septicemia. Eventually went home, but yes, this patient was in prime chorioamnionitis. Let's move on to the next case. So any of my panelists, Dr.
So you want to read the history first, Chanchal?
Yeah. So Dr. Archila, I would like you to comment on this phrase. She's a 26-year-old primary gravida, admitted at 39 weeks in spontaneous labor. On admission, she was 2 centimeters dilated, fully effaced. The station was -2. and the membranes were ruptured. There was clear leaking. She was augmented with oxytocin, and she was requested epidural for pain relief. So while waiting for epidural, she was on continuous CTG monitoring, and this is the trace.
So again, we can see that the basal heart rate was around 150, and if she's on Synto, then when we see these contractions, here we can't see the upper limit, but probably she went into hyperstimulation because of Synto, and we can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 minutes. There is a drop of fetal heart, and we can even see that it's picked up after very long. So probably after some intervention or otherwise, I can see that left letter and syntocinon was stopped, oxygen and IV given, and it picked up. So it was a reaction to syntocinon causing hyperstimulation, and there was fault. But you can see there's nothing chronic in it because the beat-to-beat variability, even in the decelerations, are maintained. So probably when we removed the cause, it had improved.
It is mainly iatrogenic, you can say that. It was oxytocin-induced only.
This beat-to-beat variability in the deceleration is a very good sign to show that baby as such is not chronically affected.
Yes.
So, that's very well summarized, ma'am. So this is most of the cases. It is mainly oxytocin which is the culprit, and we must immediately stop that. And as you rightly mentioned, that you can see where the contractions, there is the baseline seems to be just shifted. They are very close to each other, the contractions, and the top seems to be cut off. So let's move on to the next slide.
And even without the syntocinon, once the syntocinon is stopped, the contractions are happening. So she will progress and deliver fast anyway.
Yes. So next slide, please. So as Dr. Surekha rightly pointed out, that I will try, no, Dr. Naab, I think, pointed out that I will try not to panic, because then the fetal heart rate remains low by 6 minutes, everybody heart rate sinks. And the guideline mentions that if the fetal heart rate recovers within 9 minutes, you should reconsider the decision to expedite the delivery in discussion with the mother. So I think that's a very hard decision to take once you have seen a heart rate drop for 9 minutes. But yes, that's what it is recommended. If the hyperstimulation is taken care of and the heart rate recovers, you should reconsider that decision. Next slide, Sujata. I'm sorry, I'm having to ask you to move.
No, it's okay. It's okay. No worries. Yeah. Okay, so this is another case. Anybody can take this case. Baseline is 135. That much I can tell you. It's not very clear. And patient is having contractions. The history says 25 years old, primary, 39 weeks, no risk factor, labor pains 4 hours. So
patient is getting contractions and they are spontaneous. There are decelerations, but fetal heart is picking up. And pain is for last 4 hours. You would like to do her PV and do the ARM to see whether the liquor is meconium stained or not. Suppose the liquor is clear. And sometimes we have seen that even after doing the ARM also, fetal heart becomes normal also, right? So we'll have to keep the patient on continuous monitoring, and I think we can wait for the normal delivery also. And suppose these decelerations occur frequently, then in that case we might have to take her for the cesarean section.
Yeah. So these are early decelerations, mirror image of contractions with good variability and stable baseline. So this is not non-concerning, and we should continue with CTG and we see progress of labor. Very rightly said, ma'am. Next case, I don't know. So this is just to show another sinusoidal. This is a pseudo-sinusoidal pattern. What to do, Dr. Surekha?
So again, she is 40. Am I?
Yeah.
Yes. So again, she is 40 plus 4. She's post-term, and this is a sinusoidal wake pattern. So again, it suggests an imminent delivery.
Is it
pseudo-sinusoidal? What about the contraction and nothing? No.
No, just this is just to compare the sinusoidal with pseudo-sinusoidal patterns. So just I just put this one.
let us see. Yeah, pseudosinusoidal.
Yeah,
So
this is
what
basically seen
about?
with.
Yeah. So you have to do a longer trace, I think. This is a very
Yeah.
short trace to
Yeah, that was
interpret.
an
Yeah, it is a short trace. You need to do a longer trace. According to the FIGO guidelines, we need to do a longer trace of around 30 to 40 minutes. And we need to see 40 minutes whether that sinusoidal wave pattern persists. If this kind of, so you have to again see, reposition the patient and see and view a longer trace and find out what kind of pattern that is, and definitely that will again lead us to what kind. So she's 40 plus 4, so again the CTG will dictate later on what to do for this patient.
So yeah, so pseudosinusoidal pattern usually lasts for short duration, so we must keep in mind and do a longer tracing before jumping on cesarean section. And this is again same trace, I think. So the
here,
take
can
home.
I just?
Yeah, please.
I would like to add something here. So in when the tracer is once we have a sinusoidal trace, even in a low risk primary with rhesus positive blood group, this is one situation in which probably an ultrasound Doppler to look at the MCA PSV can be considered, because many times fetal anemia, it may not necessarily be because of RH isoionization. Other allo antibodies can also cause. That is one situation in which I would want to do a Doppler even in the emergency. Rest all
in sinusoidal pattern.
Yeah, if the sinusoidal pattern persists.
Okay. So this is another take-home message.
Dr. Chanchal, does PSV, it has got any meaning after 34 weeks of pregnancy?
Which? The sinusoidal pattern?
No, MCPSV, doing the Doppler and all. That this thing to see for the signs of anemia.
Yeah, for example, this primary, if at 40 weeks and 4 days, she is an RH positive girl, but she has the sinusoidal pattern. It could be because of fetal anemia, because of other antibodies, not just the RH negative. So
I agree here, Dr. Chanchal, that 40 plus 4 dictates that there has to be a Doppler, and the Doppler associated findings and along with NST will tell you what to do next. So if there is a resistance to the flow, if there is an absent, yes.
Specifically in context of the sinusoidal.
Sinusoidal. So if you are having something related to you, telling you that of course there is a fetal hypoxia and this kind of pattern, then it's again considered delivery for this patient.
Absolutely.
What kind of mode of delivery again? Mode of delivery will be again dictated by the cervical score and by the findings.
So what we
wanted to say was that when we are dealing with the post-term pregnancy, we should be skeptical about the baseline fetal heart rate, because they tend to have a lower heart rate. So if you have a basal heart rate of 160 in a 41-weeker, you should view it as tachycardia, not in the upper limit of the norm.
Yeah. So in between, the NICE guidelines had lowered the definition to define bradycardia as a baseline of less than 100. But then they have rechanged in 2017 to 110. So anything less than that should alert us. So what we wanted to, the take-home message, what we wanted was that one should interpret each feature of the CTG, classify the CTG, and then an abnormal trace, there are only 4 conditions which would warrant immediate delivery. Cord prolapse, abruption, scar dehiscence, and a prolonged deceleration. Rest all calls for reassessment of the patient, resuscitative measures, interpreting the findings in context of the patient, and then to decide whether a delivery is needed. And again, as all our panelists have reiterated time and again, that the mode of delivery is to be guided by the vaginal examination finding.
So we should treat the patient, not the CTG. That is the final message we want to give everyone. And thank you so much, all the panelists. They have really explained everything in great detail. And thank you, Chanchal, for your valuable input.
And thank you to all the panelists. You were
definitely, the moderators also deserve an applaud. With wonderful CTGs, I think we have seen all varieties of them, and
to collect them,
definitely both of them deserve this.
To tabulate them, label them, see that everything is covered is also a big, it's a headache.
And they're very, very practical CTGs. So
Yes.
that's why, you know, what people would
The
see in
kinds we
practice
get to see, and not-
regularly. So I think the histories and all were also very corroborative. So I think it was a very good effort.
Thank you
And
so
the
much.
initial explanation by Dr.
and
Sujata,
well
that was very
conducted.
good. That she
So may
explained
I
so
request
quickly.
Torrent people to say vote of thanks to everyone? Hello, Dolly, are you there?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah. Thank you, everyone, for the interesting discussion on the topic CTG traces to cases. It was really a very interesting discussion amongst you all.
Do we have questions?
Yeah, ma'am, you can check that link.
Yeah, but I don't find any questions. Can you see in that link and ask?
Yes,
It has been explained so beautifully
Yeah.
that there are no questions.
Yeah. No questions, absolutely.
And I would also like to thank the Delhi Gynec Society and as I take this opportunity to make my, for voting for the ICOG elections, the governing council member election. There are a lot of society members from the Delhi Gynec Society, and we respect Dr. Sharda Jain and her appeal that we have to vote for all the Delhi Gynec Society members who are contesting for the ICOG election. But
Just,
there are
just clarify
25 members. Yes.
Yeah.
So best luck to Dr.
Delhi
Archana, Dr.
Gynecologist
Surekha, and Dr. Tarini.
Forum.
Yes. Thank you so much. So appeal for a single vote. There are 25 members who, and there are those who deserve the best.
Yeah, so we can always extend one more vote to you.
Thank you so much.
So I think now we all can leave, and thank you so much. Stay safe. And COVID that's under control in Delhi. That's a good news, but stay indoors.
Thank you
Stay
so
safe,
much.
everybody.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thank
madam,
you,
this
Dr.
is
Sujata. Thank you,
Amit
Dr.
Saxena, Dr.
Thank
Sujata.
you, Dr. Meenakshi.
Thank you, Mr. Amit.
Thank you.
Yeah. So on behalf of Torrent, I would really like to thank all of you for attending this exciting webinar. And I will love to share that we have more than 500 attendance for the program.
Yes.
And it was really exciting that, that everyone collaboration in this program. So I really thank on behalf of Torrent. And so thank you very much for this program.
I can see Dr. Meenakshi with her